Let's get your home loan rate down. We understand how important managing cash flow is for investors. That's why talking to one of our brokers can help you find the best loan options and a better rate. Your Finni loan expert will assess your loan and quickly spot a better option if it's out there. With access to over 70 lenders and a wide range of products, you're sure to get the lowest available rate in the market. Stop worrying about your repayments now and take charge of your financial freedom. Contact a Finni mortgage specialist today on 02 8866 2444 or visit our website at www.finni.com.au.
This is a Momentum Media production.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
Okay, everyone. How you going? Phil Tarrant. Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show. I hope you're well. Well, maybe not so well. We all now know the Reserve Bank of Australia met at the start of November. They're now calling it the rate that stopped the nation. Obviously, first Tuesday of November is when the Melbourne Cup runs. Supposed to be great times for Australia, and everyone stops and eats seafood and drinks champagne and bees fancy. It was just prior to the barrier and racing. The Reserve Bank of Australia got together and made the announcement that most Australians with mortgages didn't want to hear, another 25 basis points increase. I've covered it on the Smart Property Investment Show. You can go tune into some narrative and putting some colour around it. The rest of the world seems to be sort of heading in a different direction. Just before coming on the podcast right now, I just went past one of the TVs in the office and I was talking about US investors waiting to see what happens with the Fed. But the major central banks globally in the Western world are starting to look at easing. So hopefully Australia will follow at a point in time. There's been talk for some time now that rates should start coming down the end of 2024. Let's see how that plays out. But I'd think now that we're probably at a terminal rate. I've been sort of calling for potentially one more rate rise over the last period of time since the last 3 or 4 months. And I think we've just had it. So the rate that stopped the nation, whether or not we wanted that interest rate rise this close to Christmas, whether that's going to curb spending. That said, a lot of banks, particular people like Westpac, are saying that Australians have still got so much money offsetting their mortgages. Their offset balance on the accounts with mortgages with Westpac is huge. So the logic is that most Australian borrowers can still weather these rises, but there is a lot of pain in the street. So we'll see how it all plays out. Can't do much about it, though. I'm sorry to say, you can't do much about interest rate rises. You can't get the government to do anything. You choose who you vote in, and maybe they can better shape the economic direction of the country, but can't do much about interest rate rises. You can't do much about inflation. You can't do much about any of these sort of stuff. What you can do is how you have a relationship, and a good relationship with your mortgage. So making sure you got the right mortgage, doing the right things for you, structured in the right way, and delivering the outcomes that you want to get a good mortgage, and to have a good mortgage and to continually have a good financial structure as a property investor. My big recommendation is that you get a good mortgage broker, because they're going to help you out with all this sort of stuff. And I want to bang on how important mortgage brokers are. You've probably heard me talk about it for years now. I'm just going through a process of refinancing a whole bunch of stuff and getting some new loans with the team over at Finni Mortgages, finni.com.au. They're doing a cracking job. So I get someone from that team to come and have a chat with me every now and then on the Smart Property Investment Show to actually see what's going on. Today, I want to pick up a conversation with Loisance from Finni, who is our senior broker there. And I still butcher her name. I say it really fast these days to make it sound like I can pronounce it correctly. But we had a really good chat recently around how to improve and maximize your borrowing capacity. We did a really good story online, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Go and check it out following up on this. But there was a big chunk of this that we didn't cover off. So I wanted to pick it back up. This is part 2 of this discussion. Eva, how you going?
Good. How are you? Yeah, good.
Sorry,
good.
I keep butchering your last name.
Okay.
Loisance.
Loisance, yeah.
Loisance.
We'll get there.
I'm getting there. Pretty good.
Yeah.
But thanks to your team for helping me out recently. I'm sort of penned a piece for Smart Property Investment about sort of my relationship with my mortgage broker recently. Again, you go and check it out, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. And I obviously, most people know this, so I think you guys do an absolute brilliant job. It's one of the reasons why I invested in your company. So keep doing what you're doing. It's good that that service and that capacity and that strategy that you're offering me as a property investor, I know that other investors can also get that. So it's a big part and one of the reasons why I wanted to get part of that Finni story. So keep it up, keep going. Sorry, I'm making you and your team's jobs too busy by talking about you guys, but I'll continue to do it. And whether it's the team at Finni Mortgages or any other mortgage broker, if you're not using a mortgage broker, you're mad, you're bonkers. Even if it's just have a look at what you're doing. Most lenders, I'm starting to get the emails now about most lenders passing on these 25 basis points. So expect your mortgages to get more. I don't know any lender either who is not going to pass on.
They will pass it on. Yeah,
they will pass it on straight away. They're straight out. There's two people that win. There's two people that win, or two groups of people that win either when there's the interest rate rise. Number one is the banks because there's more interest paid on loans. The other person is Australia Post. They love it when there's a rate rise because pretty much every single bank who has borrowers, they need to send them something out in the post. So there's plenty of stamps sold. So that's probably not a bad thing. Goes back in the coffers. But how you been, Eva? What's been going on?
Well, look, it's still actually been quite busy and investors aren't slowing down. And even though the interest rate rising is definitely going to hurt some people, investors don't seem to be slowing down at all. So...
Well, I think it's got a lot to do with the market. And to talk real estate prices for a moment, I think most real estate markets, I was looking at some CoreLogic data the other day, is back to where it was or thereabouts prior to this real estate slowdown. So we've regained all those losses. And then fundamentally, when you look at it, I was again just reading a piece just before coming on air. We have as many properties available for rent today than what we did like 7 or 8 years ago. I can't remember the exact number. It was like 36,000, call it. Hopefully I remember that correctly. So we've got all this migration coming in. We've got all this growth and development and all this, and we've still got as many houses that we had for rent back then at an aggregate level for properties on market. So there is a big issue, which I've been chatting about on this podcast. But that's probably why investors are out in force, because it's not a bad time to be investing in property. But we're here to talk about mortgages today, Eva. We spoke about how to improve and maximize your borrowing capacity last time we got together. Go and tune into it. And to quickly summarize what we spoke about, there's 2 ways you can improve or maximize your borrowing capacity. Number one, you can make more money. That improves your borrowing capacity. And number 2, you can spend less money, and that can improve your borrowing capacity. And if you do both of them together, that means you get the double effect of that. So make more money, spend less money. That means you're probably going to borrow more money. That means you can capitalize on opportunities in the market. How to increase your capacity? You get a pay rise, which is always a good thing to do. You might even get some bonuses put into your performance at work. That's really cool. If you're self-employed, you can just work harder, make more money. That's a nice way to do it. You can also make sure that you've got market competitive rent. So your rental income is where it should be for the current properties that you have invested. So that's how you can make more money. You can get a second job also. If you want, you can drive Ubers or, some sort of side hustle, selling stuff on the internet. Or it's really good ways to increase your borrowing capacity. Probably takes more effort and might be a little bit slower to do that than trying to reduce costs. How do you reduce costs? Get rid of unsecured debt, credit cards, car loans, all that sort of stuff. Lenders don't like that. Change your living expenses, so spend less. The sort of summary. So go back and tune into it, Eva. That's not a bad summary, is it? Did I really miss anything there?
Yeah, that's correct. And also, I'd say for the income part, even though you might not get a pay rise or might not get commission or bonus, there are lenders that assess your actual income better than others. So let's say if you earn 90K, some bank will only use 70 and some banks might actually use the whole 90. So it's also important to go with a lender that will appreciate your income for what it is and use the whole amount.
Yeah, that's smart. That's if you go directly to a bank, you're not going to know that or get that. So to my point around speaking to a mortgage broker, absolutely do that. And the thing about getting rid of non-secured debt, like try and pay that off if you can, right? That's really, really hard. And you can do that through some debt consolidation. We'll chat about that today. But even if it's just reduced, if you've got 3 or 4 credit cards, right, and they've all got $20,000, $30,000 balance, the bank's going to assume that you're going to access all of that credit in any given month. So if you don't need that much access to unsecured debt, get rid of it. Just cut the cards up. And that's going to instantly, that's not really making more money or changing your living expenses. It sits in the middle there, and that's access to debt. Remove your access to debt if you can. In terms of that sort of unsecured debt, do you really need to buy a new car on a novated lease? And banks, you said last time, don't really like all those lease arrangements. Do you need that store card? Do you need that access to Afterpay or Alipay or whatever that other stuff is? Like, just get rid of it. If you don't need it, get rid of it. And it's going to really quickly present a much better proposition to banks. Now, let's chat about the other stuff, Eva, which is a bit more structural, how to improve or maximize borrowing capacity. We'll just go to a quick break. Stay with us, everyone. Back in a moment. Welcome back. Phil Tarrant from Smart Prime Investment with Eva at Finni Mortgages, finni.com.au. These guys are cracking along at the moment. But Eva, this whole idea about improving or maximizing borrowing capacity, is this something you think most people are conscious or aware of when they start talking to a mortgage broker? Or is it more like, I just need a loan quick, can you get me one?
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. You get people that come in literally with a signed contract and quick, I need my finance ready in a week or two, depending the state. And really, some people don't even know what they can afford or what they can actually get for lending. Even though they could afford it, doesn't mean that the bank will lend that to them. So I think it's important before they start looking to really understand where they sit in the lending space.
Absolutely. So start thinking about this now rather than later before you start going shopping for a place and signing a contract. You need, to your point around living expense, you probably need to show 3 good months of living under some sort of reduced means. So what was the story you told about someone spent $9,000 on McDonald's or something other, which appeared in a...
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yes, I did say that.
I want to speak to this person. I want to know how they ate $9,000 worth of McDonald's. That's hard going.
Yes, hard going. I actually was really curious and went and checked his Facebook profile to see what someone that spends $9,000 for McDonald's looks like. And he actually looks quite fit. So I was like, oh my God, how is that happening?
Well, a lot of sort of, fit people, so they just load up. They need the calories, right? Because they sort of move through it so quickly. Get a 25 pack and chicken nuggets. That's my go-to. But all right, let's chat about some other things, Eva. So paying down your owner-occupied debt as a way to maximize and improve your borrowing capacity. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so what I see a lot is people have their home and a debt against their home, and they've started to save money to invest, which is great. And often they come to me with, let's say, $60,000, $70,000 worth of saving, and they say to me, look, I've saved that money and I'm going to use that money to pay down as a deposit to buy my next property. So a lot of people think like that, but technically that money you're going to put towards the property is going to be gone. You're not going to be able to tax deduct it, and your owner-occupier debt isn't going down either. So what I tell my client here is to take that money, that $60,000, $80,000 worth of savings they have, put that down against their home loan. So let's say the home loan was $500,000 to actually pay down the debt to, let's say, $420,000. So that reduced the non-tax deductible debt, and actually release back that $80,000 as an investment split that will be tax deductible. So at the end of the day, they do have the same amount of debt, except that they have a less, I guess, a smaller debt against their home, and can maximize the investment debt and the tax deductibility, so pay less tax as well at the end of the year. And it seems like that's something that's very simple. People forget to do. Okay.
So a lot of people just go, that sounds counter-cyclical. And this is just one strategy available to investors around this sort of stuff. And speak to your accountant about it if it's a bit confusing. But so what you're saying, Eva, is that save the money, pay off or pay down the debt on your principal place of residence, because there is no
benefit. It's
no benefit from a tax point of view, and maximize the debt on the investment property because that is tax deductible. And if it's tax deductible, then you have the benefits of negative gearing, all that sort of stuff. So anything in your principal place of residence has no bearing whatsoever to how you may be able to get some tax benefits working with your accountant in line with the rules and regulations around the ATO. So a lot of people think, that's mad. I thought I should be lifting my principal place of residence as high as possible so I can extract all that equity so I can invest in property. That may be the case if you're starting out investing, but when you maybe get a couple of properties under your belt, start thinking about it differently.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, you're going to end up with the same amount of debt. You do need to have some savings potentially to start, especially if you don't have equity in your home. But the way you're going to be using that cash is extremely important for maybe the second investment property you're going to be getting, because the debt you got against your home the bigger it is, the worse it gets to invest and keep borrowing money.
Yeah. Okay.
And look, that's something I see a lot. And I get a lot of clients that comes to us for the second or third investment property, and almost none of them have done that. So that's called debt recycling. It's very easy. And I just wanted to get the word out that if you have cash, it should go first towards your home and get it back out as an investment split.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so debt
Very
recycling
important.
is what it's called. And banks are happy with that. They go, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah. No, that's
So there might be something you might want to give Eva and a team a call on if you want more info, because a lot of people just go, I don't really, it's a weird concept. We'll do a story also on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, but have a think about that. So it's really loading up your debt levels inside of your investment assets rather than loading up your debt levels inside of your principal place of residence, because you get tax benefits from it. Your accountant can help you out with it. Now, this is something I've done effectively, Eva, and you find that for a lot of property investors, when they sort of get to maybe 3 properties, 4 properties, they start thinking this way. And that's the structure in which and how you choose to invest. So there's a number of different ways you can structure this. You can invest in your personal name. You can invest in partnership with people, i.e. co-invest, or you can invest in sort of trust structures or company structures. The latter is probably for the more sophisticated investor, but the latter is also probably more expensive for a number of different reasons. But again, depending on where and how and why you're investing, there's going to come to a point in time when investing in your personal name, you've pretty much absorbed all the benefits from that. And one of those benefits would be land tax. And one of those other benefits would be also, if you're investing as your principal place of residence, around capital gains. So at a point in time, you're going to have to start thinking about your structure differently. So investing in your trust, Eva, can also help improve and maximize your borrowing capacity, correct?
Yes, correct. So obviously there's the option of doing an SMSF as well, which we spoke about previously. But the one I think today we need to speak about is the typical family trust. That does help borrowing capacity, because if you manage to get a property within a trust that is positively geared, and we can get either the tax return or your accountant confirming that it is, then to buy more properties later, we can literally ignore that debt.
Okay. You better say that again.
So if you buy a property within a trust and your trust is positively geared, which means it looks after itself, the rent pays for all expenses, you don't have to put in your income or your personal savings to manage and keep the trust going, and your accountant can confirm that, or the tax return can confirm that, then if you want to go and buy another property, we normally have to factor all your debts in, and that affects your capacity. But if your trust is positively geared and the debt, let's say $500,000 in there, can look after itself, we don't have to include that in servicing, which really increase how much you can do.
So the banks just go, oh, that's sort of washing its own face. Therefore, I'm not concerned or worried about that, and I'll move it. Does every lender do that, or some lenders do that?
Most of them, but again, it has to be positively geared.
Yeah,
it's a real condition, and there's no exception on that. And that's how people, I guess, buy a lot of properties. They buy a property, create a trust for each property, and keep going that way. But again, it's too late to start with a trust if you already have, let's say, 5 properties and it's negatively geared and you're struggling to get more capacity. You should think about the trust maybe for your third property when you feel like you're getting to that ceiling, and putting property in trust is what's going to get you going. Often people put commercial properties within trust because they're more likely to be positively geared.
Yeah, again, this is probably a conversation to have in line or collaboration with your accountant and also your mortgage broker. It makes sense that now, trying to get, depending where you're buying, to try and get individual properties inside of one trust, it could be a very expensive way to do it, to be fair.
It is.
But
it is.
Depending what LVR you're at and where you're buying, it may be difficult to get positively geared trust. And there's another important component to this, is that some states actually have, what do you call it, like limits on the value of the land inside of each trust. If you've got 1, 2, or 3 properties, or how many it is, then you'd have to pay land tax on it as well, right? So you've got to get really strategic with this sort of stuff, where you create a trust, you might put a couple of properties into it, you stay under that threshold, so you're going to pay land tax, and you buy assets which are reasonably well yielding, and you can get neutrality or at least some sort of positivity inside of that trust. So that's what Eva's talking about there. If you're going to do this, you've got to be This is not
Very
passive. You've got to
smart.
be really, really active. You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to be really smart, strategic about it. That said, though, is that you can build a portfolio of positively geared trusts. And to Eva's point, the bank's going to be happy. That means you're creating essentially separate, independent, profit-making businesses that make lenders happy. So they're happy to continue lending to you, and they won't consider the debt that sits inside it as part of your serviceability. And that's the key point, isn't it, Eva?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Again, it's hard and it takes some smart strategy there. So definitely have an accountant and a financial planner even involved. Obviously, as brokers, we can only give you advice on, or not even advice, but we can tell you how lending works around trust, but it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do for everybody. So
yeah,
there's a lot to it. Yeah.
And this obviously not advice by any means. With me and Eva just having a chat around some different ways you can do stuff. Our recommendation is to speak to a specialist who can provide you the advice that you need in relation to this. These are just concepts that we're discussing. The flip side of trust investing, Eva, and depending on what you're choosing to do, that might be a really good scenario if you're looking to accumulate more properties to build positively geared trusts so you can continue to buy and buy and buy. There's other benefits of having trusts. And if you have multiple trusts, it means you can do different things in different trusts. There are benefits to potentially building up losses inside of your trust if they are negatively geared, if you're going down a pathway of potentially selling property. So there is benefits around that as well. Again, speak to your accountant. This is pretty sophisticated stuff, which most Australian investors should be able to get their heads around. I'm not saying it's like trying to land a man on the moon. You just need to be across it and actually understand all the nuances and dynamics around all of this. And I do reiterate, this is not advice by any means, but this is different ways you can view stuff with view towards maximizing and improving your borrowing capacity if you're on a pathway of accumulating more properties. So there's lots of things available. What would typically happen is that if you go directly to a bank or even via your mortgage broker and you're investing in your own individual name, they're going to go, nah, no more money for you because your serviceability based on your income doesn't warrant or doesn't show that you can afford any more debt. So that's what happens during your own personal name. So at a point in time, you need to think about other structures. But there's other ways you can actually generate more money, Eva, from your family. I want to have a chat about that. We'll just go to another break. Stay with us. Back in a moment. Welcome back to the Smart Property Investment Show. I'm having a chat with Eva from Finni Mortgages, finni.com.au, finni.com.au. Now, from what I understand, lenders will, if you've got kids at home, you can charge them rent and board and they'll take that as income. Is that correct?
Yes and no. If it's definitely actually on the other side of the investment, I guess, spectrum there. If you are a young Australian living at home with your parents, that's probably the ideal time to actually start investing because some bank will only use literally zero as your rental expenses. Some bank will use notional rent. And that's not much. It's like $450 to $650 a month. And that really obviously doesn't affect much your capacity. So really, if you're at home working, but living at home with your parents, perfect time to start investing.
So parents can't charge their kids rent and say that's income because then they have to pay tax on it.
Yeah, they could technically as well. There is boarding income that can be also, if it's on your tax return and it's there, you could probably use that. Yeah, that's income.
Same thing applies if you've got like a granny flat or a spare part of your house. You can rent it out for Airbnb and that would be income. Obviously, you would need to claim it as rental income on your tax returns, but that also contributes to your ability to show at the revenue line. So what you're saying then, Eva, is if you're living at home, you're younger or whatever, you might be older. So people living at home till they're 40 these days, right?
Younger, not so young then, but living
younger,
at home.
Not so young, still young, well, maybe 30 something. So what you're saying then, if you're living at home and say you've got parents which like you hanging around and your mum still does your washing and cooks your food every day and you're living a dream.
The dream, yeah.
And you don't have to pay any rent. So it's rent-free completely. So the bank will still sort of assume that you're paying some rent just because it's got to be realistic. They're not going to go, okay, it doesn't cost you anything. So all your income is just savable income. They're not going to say, they don't do that.
Yeah, there's some banks do actually zero. If you can get a letter from mum saying, yes, you can stay here as long as you want, my darling, and they will put zero, that's fine. But most of them will use 650 per month as, normal expenses you would have if you stayed at your parents. But yeah, I guess it's a perfect time because you're never going to have a living arrangement that is so cheap, I guess. So perfect time. And the other thing I'd like to, I guess, point out is if you do live with flatmates and there is like 3-4 people working and living, I should say, in the same house, be careful about the lease agreement that you're signing. Because let's say if you're the only person signing the lease and they give you cash in hand and you go and apply for a loan, technically you are the only person liable for that rent and the bank will use the whole amount against you. If on the opposite hand, you're quite smart and you say, hey, Joe, you're going to be on the list. I'm just going to give you cash. Then you can also say, I don't have any rental expenses. So be careful with how you sign the lease. I guess the ideal way and the fairest way is to have everybody on the list paying their share. And the bank would be happy to say, there's 4 people here at Starbucks a week. I'm going to use a quarter for you and that's it. So just be careful how you sign the lease because that's going to affect your capacity as well.
And these are the little structural things you got to be right across.
Don't think about it.
If you are the only person on the lease and you're getting sort of, cash, which you shouldn't, to be fair, but that's going to impact your ability to borrow money. You're thinking, I'm getting a bit of cash in the back pocket. It's going to hit you hard. And we spoke about this in the first part of this series around self-employed people thinking, hey, I'm going to try and pay as little tax as possible by being sort of creative in how they run their small business. Yeah, the flip side of that, a bank's going to go, I'm not lending you any money. And when you sit there and go, oh, no, I'm really making this much money, but my accountant does my tax this way, I'm not going to cut it. So if you want to borrow money, you've got to show income and you've got to show profitable income, whether it's your own family balance sheet of how you run your household expenses and it highlights how much capacity you have for investing in property outside of all those costs and or inside your business. If you want to play the game, you've got to play the game. And that is show profit, pay your tax, make lenders happy. That's the way to go ahead. And you see, sometimes it takes people 2 years to fix. They might have been running their small business in a particular way. It takes a couple of years to fix it before a lender's going to be happy and satisfied that you have surplus income so you can invest in property. So that's the point, I think, that I'm hearing here, Eva, is for property investors who have, maybe adult children, early 20s, let's call it. They got their capital. I saw a report the other day. I don't know if you've seen this. It was like 60+% of all first-home buyers get some help. Maybe it's more than that. Some help from family members in order to invest in property. Is that right?
Yeah, it's huge. And actually there's I think it was one of the first podcasts we did, Phil, on the family pledge as well, where people think they have to give cash to their kids to start. But if they have equity in their home, they actually could really start investing or even buying their home with zero cash at all, zero, nothing. And it's just using the equity mom and dad have in their house. So that's another option where parents shouldn't feel like they have to give, 100K to each of their kids. There's other ways.
Yeah, I think a good way to do it, what do they call it, a living will or something these days, right? And maybe this is something creative for those parents out there. You say, you can live at home rent-free. It's not going to cost you a cent. And you can live here between 20 and 30. Mum will still cook your dinner or dad can cook your dinner and wash your clothes. You don't need to do anything at all, right? I'm going to start charging you board if you don't put 70% of your savings to a mortgage deposit every single month. As soon as you miss that metric, I'm going to start charging you rent. That's a really smart way to get your kids saving, accelerated savings to maximize their borrowing capacity. You think about the damage you can do. They go out and spend it on overseas trips and fancy cars and cocktails and avocado on toast. It seems to be the baseline around the stupidity of spending, in inverted commas, stupidity of spending for younger people. There's a hot tip for you out there, parents. Let me know what you think about that. Give them a free ride. Give them a free ride for 10 years once they start earning income, living at home, but they've got to put at least 70%, 80%, at least there you go, 80% of their income needs to go to savings. They should be able to live on 20%. If they can do that and they can save the money, it means they can afford a mortgage and they can showcase how they are disciplined and diligent enough to do that. And they can live at home and they can invest. I reckon that's a great idea. I might do that.
Love it.
It's a new thing. It's a new thing. And that there is going to be the accelerator for them on their pathway for independence. Now, you see financial independence to some degree. This whole notion these days of it's impossible to get into the housing market. I tell you what, if you start doing that when you start working, if you do that for 3-4 years, you save yourself a deposit, buy yourself an investment property, still live at home with mum and dad, you're buying the right place with the right deposit, you're probably going to get it pretty close to a neutrally geared portfolio. Keep saving your money. And at a point in time when you get married and you want to have kids, you can offload those things. You've got yourself a family home. You're in the property market. No worries. That's how you fix it, Eva.
Easy peasy.
You guys can sort out the finance around that. No worries.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty, to the point being, if you did that, you
that's
save
right.
for 3 or 4 years for a deposit under that basis, and you got a good PAYG job, you're not going to struggle getting a home loan, are you?
No, and you know what? Like not long ago, I did a younger person, like 23, I think. He's on 62,000, which is, not a huge lot these days. And he still bought his first investment property.
There you go.
So I think that's the most annoying, I guess, thing I can hear is I can't afford it. We're never going to get in the market. That's not true. If you look at the ways that someone can get in there and listen to the stories and talk to a broker, you might get ideas that works for you. And it's not true. Everyone can get in. And we'll help you to get there. Yeah.
The negative of that is you might not be going to live in Europe for a year doing nothing, which is okay. I did that. I did it for a lot longer than a year, by the way. So anyway, if you want to get in the market early, do that first and then go traveling,
Yes.
I've seen it. People have got one investment property. They do that. They spend 4 years saving up. They get an investment property. They nick off overseas for a couple of years at 24, 25 with an investment property back at home, which is going up in value, it's paying for itself, and sometimes putting money in their back pocket. What a great thing to do. What a great thing to do. Anyway, this is not parental advice at all. This is just some ideas around how you can support your children. But, if they've got skin in the game, I tell you what, they're probably a lot more focused on saving their dough. Eva, running up the Chrissy, you guys still got capacity. You can chat to people. You're happy to fix things. If people have got the wrong loans, you're happy to get people on their way.
Yeah, of course. We do have a lot of investors actually trying to settle before Christmas. So that's definitely still possible. If you buy a property tomorrow, we can still make it happen before Christmas. That's tight, but still doable, I think, until the end of the week. And otherwise, if it's just a refinance, doesn't matter. You can settle between Christmas, New Year's, just after. It's okay. Yeah.
Okay. What's the best way to contact you and your team?
Yeah, so finni.com.au, there's a page there to enter your details and book an appointment with a broker. Yeah.
Good work. Finni.com, that is FINNI.com.au. Thanks for your time, Eva. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Nice one. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. A bit of a rambling there from me, but some ideas around not only sort of maximising, improving your own borrowing capacity, but also helping your kids out. I get it if you can help your kids out onto the property ladder, but rather than just refinancing your home or selling it so you can give them all $100,000 free pass, I'd make them work a lot harder for it than that. And it is possible and accessible and available if they're committed. Anyway, some different ideas. Lots of these stories on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Go and check it out. Smart Property HQ is where you can find us on the social media if that's how you like to get your info. We'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.
Do you need help planning your next event? With over 15 years of experience, Captivate Events is the expert in event planning. Our dedicated team ensures every detail is meticulously handled. Whether it's a gala dinner, exhibition, conference or study tour, we've got you covered. We'll be there every step of the way, from conceptualisation to flawless execution, to ensure your event is a seamless experience, minimising the time and stress involved in planning. Make your next event one to remember. Visit www.captivateevents.com.au or call 02 88 66 2440 and find out how we can captivate your audience.